Hello, I'm Nancy Zemmel, Director of Student Life and Learning, and welcome back to McGill Law's Ask the SAO, the podcast. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that McGill University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Anishinaabe and the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation are recognized as the first custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, Montreal is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. In this episode, we invite Minister David Lametti to reminisce about his time as a law student, the beginning of the LSA Coffee House, and his trajectory from professor to political life. Professor Lemetti obtained a BA in Economics and Political Science from University of Toronto in 1985 and received his BCL LLB from McGill in 1989. He received an LLM from Yale Law School in 1991 and a doctorate in law at Oxford University. He also clerked for Justice Peter Corey of the Supreme Court of Canada. En octobre 2015, il a été élu député pour la circonscription de LSA-Verdun. Il a été nommé secrétaire parlementaire de la ministre du Commerce international en décembre 2015. En janvier 2019, il a été nommé ministre de la Justice du Canada. I'd like to welcome my guest today, the Honourable David Lametti, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. Known to many of our listeners as Professor Lemetti. He is currently on public service leave from the Faculty of Law. Thank you so much, Minister Lemetti, for taking the time to meet with us today on McGill Law's Ask the SAO, the podcast.
Pleasure to be here. I guess it's the virtual fourth floor. It's all good.
Yes, it is. You and I go back a few years, and I've had the opportunity to work closely during your time as Associate Dean Academic from 2008 and 2011. I learned a lot working very closely with you.
As did I.
And take a lot of that with me as I go forward in my career. We'll see what the next few years bring. Ministre Lemetti, je sais que vous êtes un grand admirateur de la musique. Quel type de musique écoutez-vous pour vous aider à surmonter cette période de COVID et à garder votre bien-être?
Pour la période COVID, c'est un peu de tout, je dois dire. Je suis assez âgé pour avoir vécu plusieurs vagues musicales. Donc, encore du punk, post-punk, new wave, les années alternative, les années 90 alternative, du rock, même du heavy metal de temps en autre, un peu de rap. Non, il y a un peu de tout, je dois dire. And some folky stuff. I had some Kathleen Edwards on the other night, who's an Ottawa artist, and Waxahachie, and some sort of newer artists as well.
Great. I tend to play Arcade Fire a little loud and kind of reserve classic music for my Sundays, I guess, as a de-stressor for the upcoming week.
Fair enough. Well, my favorite Mile End bands are not actually not Arcade Fire is okay, but my favorite Mile End bands are Plants and Animals, who you may remember Jillian Nickham, who managed Plants and Animals for many years. Jill's now the registrar, so there we are. She'll sign you. She'll be signing your diplomas, gang. Hang on, and the Deers, who I really like a lot. They're another one of the old traditional Mile End bands.
I'll have to do a little bit of a Google search, I think, on some of them. Now, if we can jump back in time a little bit, you completed your BCL LLB here at McGill in 1989. And are well known. In fact, you were a trivia question recently for the one else. You're well known for being the Law Student Association president for introducing Coffee House. What led you to the creation of Coffee House?
Well, I won't take complete credit. I was the president of the Law Students Association at the time, but it was my whole executive, including my one of my VPs, Norbert Hansel, who's still a Montreal lawyer. We wanted to try to bring students and faculty closer together, and we decided there had been a sort of predecessor event from time to time. It was kind of like a one-off, like Skit Night. once a year, twice a year. And we decided, okay, let's do something every week. We picked Thursday afternoons, because that seemed to be the best time to get students and faculty together. And in the early days, I don't want to be overly nostalgic, but in the early days, when it was really just faculty and students, a lot of faculty used to show up before the days of sponsorship and that sort of thing. And we really had fun. We really had fun. I actually did some music, DJ'd a couple of them. I DJ'd one live, and then I DJ'd one in the old days of your iPod. I put my music onto an iPod and we plugged it in. So, and then I published the playlist in the Quid.
Yeah, well, the LSA still does those coffee house. Of course, now they have removed remote, so we'll see how the turnout is for them now. How did you balance your academic coursework obligations alongside of being the LSA president?
Look, that's always the challenge. It's a challenge that I still have now, and it's a challenge that I had as a student and as an adult. And it's a challenge that everyone, I think, in a law faculty like McGill has to appreciate. There are a lot of interesting activities going on, and there are a lot of ways to do public service at the same time. In my case, it was the LSA and other activities. And so I guess you learn to prioritize, you learn to improvise, quite frankly, too. I mean, there are a lot of times when your schedule changes. That's true now, and it was true then, when your schedule changes at the last minute. At the end of the day, I tried to, work hard when I was working, and I tried to play hard when I was playing, and organize well when I was organizing, and I tried not to mix them all up. That's obviously an ideal, and it doesn't always work so well, but you really just have to do your best and try to keep some time for yourself at the end of it all.
Right. Yeah, it's very true. And what would you say to a current law student who might be thinking about running for president of the LSA or just an LSA member? Like, what do you think are some of the advantages to being part of the LSA?
Well, look, it's always it's a great institution. Geez, I wonder how many years it's been. 75th anniversary when I was there, so it must have. It's over 100 years old now, I guess. And so it is a great institution. A lot of interesting people have come and gone. As Erwin Kotler was, one of my predecessors. Yeah, it doesn't mean if you're LSA president you'll be Minister of Justice, but you have a run of two. Tom Mulcair was also Tom Mulcair as well. So he didn't quite make Minister of Justice, but he did some other good things. So it's a good institution, and it's a good institution because it serves the needs of its constituents, the students. The LSA has traditionally done a really good job at advocating at faculty council on behalf of students, along with elected student members of faculty council. And it's also done a good job on the service side, providing support to students, providing a social life for many students coming from out of town. So it's a good organization precisely because it serves its constituents well. And I would say to anybody who wants to get involved with it, do so and do it for the right reasons. I used to tell my students every year, it's election time for the LSA. Why don't you think about running? Because it's actually a lot of fun to work with a group of committed people, to work for a good group of constituents who will appreciate what you do.
Yeah, and you get to make some good changes for the classes that follow you afterwards.
Very true, very true. And if you get lucky, you get to do something that people remember, like Coffee House, or But the substantive stuff we actually did was vote on program changes, and that was fun too.
Yes, yeah. Et maintenant, j'aimerais vous ramener à l'époque où vous étiez étudiant en droit. Quels sont les souvenirs que vous ont le plus marqué?
Ben, je dirais que ce sont les personnages, soit les profs. J'ai eu des profs comme le défunt Rod McDonald qui a vraiment eu un impact sur moi personnellement. Il est devenu un mentor pour moi et a eu un impact très positif sur ma carrière. D'autres profs aussi, comme Blaine Baker, David Stevens, Blaine défunt aussi, malheureusement. Et aussi mes amis. Les amis que j'ai faits lors de mes années dans la faculté de droit, ils demeurent encore mes meilleurs amis. Et donc, ils sont un peu partout maintenant, mais ça c'est la nature du McGill. Les gens vont un peu partout dans le monde. Euh, mais mais les gens, vraiment que on a quelques réunions sur Zoom une fois chaque 2, 3 semaines, mais ils sont devenus vraiment mes vrais amis. Euh, et donc, les expériences que j'ai eues avec eux autres, soit dans la salle de classe, des fois drôles, des fois pas si drôles que ça, et aussi dans d'autres activités comme les sports, la faculté, ou évidemment l'AED ou la revue de droit.
As minister, and given the COVID situation, you've had to move to, I'm sure, some remote working as well. Can you think of anything, of any advice or what you may have done as a law student that could translate to our current 1Ls during this time of remote? Any kind of study habits or tips or any kind of guidance you could give them?
Well, in my case, it was learning new technology when I was a law student. I got my first desktop computer midway through my law studies. So it was, I think, the resiliency I got learning how to use new technology to do new things. And then later all this technological revolution that's now become day to day. So I think it's really that resiliency. Every day I'm a little bit challenged by, whether the meeting is on Zoom or WebEx or Teams, and they're all a little bit different, and the platform is all a little bit different, and so and my various computers seem to treat them all a little differently. But so it's really that resiliency. I am working, I'm working from generally my Ottawa apartment or my Hill office, which is now staffed by one person instead of more than that. The whole ministry team is working at a distance. We have a rotation of one person who has to come in and to help me at a safe distance. You still need to have that human contact, and this will work, and this does work because we had built a pretty good sense of human contacts before all this happened, and I'm hoping we can continue this for as long as we need to continue this, but it is a challenge. And so we continue to try to be social and maintain the little social things that is the glue really that keeps a team working together, and that's tough. I've got some great people around me, fair number of McGill law grads around me. I have, including my chief of staff, Rachel Doran, and so it is tough, and we work at it. I can only imagine how tough it is not having that locus of people on the 4th floor, which was a lot of fun, in addition to doing a good job serving students.
Yeah, it really is. It's been a huge adjustment for myself and the rest of the SAO staff. But yeah, I mean, Zoom has been our go-to for a lot of our meetings, as well as Teams and so forth. What experiences as a law student or even as a professor that you think led you to pursue a political life?
Well, I think think there was always sort of a critical policy bent at McGill. So both as a student I was challenged to think about how it could be better. A number of different courses, beginning right from the beginning with Rod McDonald in foundations, and then through a number of different courses. And I hope, I like to think that I pushed my students to think about this in the courses I taught, whether it was property or IP or anything else. I would often drive students on exams. I think I drove them crazy, actually, but by giving them a sort of new set of facts, a set of policy facts, and make them deal with it in some way, shape, or form. So I do hope I tried to drive that as well. So that sort of policy instinct became second nature. And when I was dissatisfied with the government of the day, and running for office seemed to be the best way to change that, I did. And I worked hard, but I also got lucky to get a nomination, get elected, and get named minister. So I'm appreciative of the opportunities, but I really am appreciative also of McGill for really driving me to think through things the way perhaps we ought to think through things.
And what would you say to a current law student who might be considering the life in politics and hoping one day to become a member of parliament?
Well, look, first of all, I would encourage it because I do value public service. Students who had me as a professor will recall also that I never denigrated public servants, and I always valued their participation both in student politics and encouraged it, and also students running for office. And I'm very proud to say I've taught a number of people in my caucus and in my cabinet. I taught Kath McKenna. And a bunch of other people, Rachel Ben-Dian and Joël Lightbound and Will Amos and others in my caucus. And they weren't the first. The first, I think, minister I taught was Greg Rickford for the Conservative government. So and now he's a minister in Ontario. So I do think it's important to run for public office. If you're going to do it, we all work hard. Everyone in sort of law at McGill is a type A plus personality. So I don't think anybody needs to be told they have to work hard, but you do have to manage your time in the sense that MPs have to divide their time between Ottawa and the House of Commons, and then between their constituencies. So it's actually a 7-day-a-week job. You're often in Ottawa during the week when you're sitting, and then you're at home on weekends during constituency weeks, doing a lot of events. So do it at a time in your life when you can do it. I did it after my kids got older, and that was great because I gave my time to my kids, and I coached and I did stuff with them, and I don't feel like I missed anything in terms of their upbringing. And I hope they would say the same thing. And so pick a period in your life when you can. Some people manage with their kids. They do a great job. I salute them. But really, I would say pick a band in your life when you really have time to throw yourself at it. And in doing that, it's exceedingly rewarding.
Thank you. Any last words that you like to share?
I have said this publicly before, and I'll say it again, but my time at McGill marked me intellectually, and really laid the basis for sort of my intellectual career later as a professor, and then McGill continued to give back to me when I was a professor through successive iterations of outstanding students and colleagues. And so you will appreciate, sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes SAO is frustrating. You gotta, sometimes the associate dean can be not so nice. I had to play that role, saying no. Sometimes on your advice, Nancy, I have to admit, but I often had to play that role of saying no to student requests, and it wasn't easy. But I tried to always do it on a principled basis. And so notwithstanding those frustrations with the faculty, I think you're going to see in the long run that you will have been very well served by everyone in the faculty, including everyone on the 4th floor, who's really there to try to make your experience better. And so be patient in your interactions with them. Understand that they're there trying to help you and maintain the sort of values of the institution, and those values will serve you well over the rest of your lives and your career. So I really wish everyone the best. Thanks for this opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Un grand merci, Ministre Lemetti, de nous rejoindre aujourd'hui. That brings us to the end of our podcast. So again, thank you very much, Minister Lemetti, for joining us. And I'm sending everyone good wishes and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to McGill Law's Ask the SAO, the podcast. Be sure to tune in again next time. If you have any podcast ideas or suggestions, please email the SAO at sao.law@mcgill.ca. Just enter podcast in the subject line. Thank you et bonne journée.